including my haters, because you motivated me.
On Waddle and Silvy.
That's right. Courtney Cronin's the best in the business. She's brought to you by Costa Ivone. Injured? Call 708-4-million for the people of Chicago, because they are Chicago. Costa Ivone, your local personal injury lawyers. Courtney, today was a private day, right? No access for you guys today?
Yeah, so it's their weird Monday schedule coming off Labor Day. Like, the Vikings are having their player day off, but it's meetings, but no practice tomorrow. The Bears did it today that way.
Any surprises on the injury report? We didn't think it was great news. Jalen Johnson, it's listed now, calf and groin, limited. Kyle Monangai, limited. No Roschon, no Edwards, no Blackwell.
I wouldn't say there's anything too surprising based on what we saw yesterday when they didn't have to put out the injury report, but we were out there for practice. The no TJ Edwards thing, I think, is probably to me, Jalen Johnson's not going to be at full health. Even if he's out there, he would be at a pitch count. I don't expect him to shadow Justin Jefferson, but when you've got a really good run game that they're going to lean on in Minnesota to support J.J. McCarthy in his NFL debut, I think you're going to miss TJ Edwards if he can't get out there. I just go back to, it was last Wednesday when he left practice early, and he did not look happy when he walked off the field with the trainer. So I was wondering what that was. You hear it's a hamstring injury. We know how they feel about soft tissue injuries and trying to make sure that the risk of re-injury is mitigated. So that's one with him DNP today, and it was an estimation that I would continue to keep a very close eye on, considering it's Ruben Hippolyte, it's Noah Sewell behind him on the depth chart, and which one would be able to man that weak side linebacker spot if he's not able to go.
If Jalen Johnson can't go, Courtney, is it Nahshon Wright?
It's got to be, right? But you're not. I think you're playing sides at that point. You're not trying to, really lean into what Dennis Allen wants from this, the man coverage of the back end of that unit. I don't think you're having anybody shadow Justin Jefferson specifically, unless it's Jalen Johnson. But, yeah, it would be Nahshon Wright.
What are you expecting offensively? This was a big talking point yesterday. Waddle was getting a little anxious, doesn't want to hear any excuse making. Hand holding is a big issue for him. So what are you expecting for the offense to look like?
I think they're going to have to, I'm really curious about what the script looks like. Those first 15 plays to get Caleb in a rhythm, to not have any negative plays, to not have, to keep the offense on the field. I wonder if we see less shifts, less motions early on, to not get too complicated and too cute, even though that's what a Ben Johnson offense features a lot of. They motion more than most teams in the NFL, and that's to the benefit of them when they're trying to, throw the defense off before they get set to snap the ball. I wonder if they're going to maybe ease their way into that instead of coming out guns blazing and, trying to take advantage of a defense that they know is going to be sending pressure from all over. I think with Caleb in this offense, you don't want to – there's something about what we saw in Kansas City, sending the offense back out there after those two pretty bad drives, getting them confident, building confidence. I think that you're going to try to find ways, if you're Ben Johnson, to put Caleb in a spot where he's getting the layups early on. And that's how it should be. That's, the first game for anybody, frankly, should be a heavy dose of play action, him going under center, the leaning on the run game, although – the injuries that you mentioned, guys, with Kyle Monangai and the hamstring, he was limited today. Roschon Johnson has the foot injury. They're kind of thin there for the options of are you just going to lean on DeAndre Swift and hope for the best? That one worries me when you think about how they can try to get Caleb in an early rhythm if you don't have much run support to lean on.
Courtney, what's your prediction for what groupings will we see the most against this Brian Flores defense? Will we see 12 personnel? Will we see 3 receivers? What do you think that the plan will be against this defense?
I think you're going to want to take advantage of the inexperience, on the back end. They're not very deep. That's in the secondary, and we know that Harrison Smith is dealing with some sort of personal health issue. He didn't practice today. And that's, you heard Caleb talk about the chess match, the cat and mouse game that he called it, between himself and 22 back there. I think you see some 11 personnel. I think that it's, what Ben Johnson talks about, trusting young playmakers. I don't know if that will be Luther Burden in as much as like how good he's been in the preseason. I do think that that's DJ Moore, Roma Dunze, Olamide Zaccheaus, and then being able to ease the young skill players into having a role, whether that's 12 personnel with Colston Loveland. Maybe he's not your featured tight end this game, but getting him some snaps first before you really expect a lot out of those guys. But they killed him the last couple of years when Ben Johnson was in Detroit. He had Brian Flores' number. In a lot of those games, they were living in 12 personnel. So I think that you can definitely go to that. But if you want to take advantage of a secondary that's dealing with some missing pieces right now and potentially a missing piece in that game and their best DB, I would probably go the latter with a lot more Levin.
And I know what you're saying early on too, especially before there's that trust. But I want to ask you specifically about DJ Moore's role this year, because it didn't seem like him and Caleb were on the same page a lot last year. And already Caleb is talking about Zaccheaus being his guy, that those are the two guys, kind of how they hang out. Rome is expected to be the number one receiver this year. You drafted Loveland that high to throw him the football. And then you got Burden, who does a lot of the same things as DJ. Does DJ still become very important because Ben Johnson is going to utilize him in the right way? Or is he eventually going to take a backseat to maybe some of these other skill guys?
Isn't it hard to think about how much they paid him? And I know it was under a different staff, but to think that, this guy who's making $110 million, on a 4-year extension with the Bears, that he's not going to be utilized, I think they're going to try to find any role that they can for DJ. And I still have a lot of confidence that he is. Every time I've talked about who's the number one receiver in this offense, I know some people take it as a slight when you say somebody who was a number one is no longer the number one, but they've found a way to use DJ as a chess piece. And I remember, the thought of, okay, is this Deebo Samuel? That's popped up on social media a couple times because of the way that San Francisco, in a much more aggressive way, especially with using him earlier on in his career in the backfield. But I asked DJ about this yesterday, and he says he's heard the comparisons, and of course he's said, I'm me. You don't want to be anybody else out there, but there are some similarities I think you can draw from that comparison to what he could be for this offense in a role that's going to ask him to line up in the backfield, run routes out of the backfield, line up in the backfield, maybe carry the ball out of the backfield. He does it more than other players. So I think that you can, based on what you saw in the preseason, that's an indication of how they're going to use him this year. And I think that it doesn't necessarily mean, it's hard to figure out, who's the odd man out here? You know what I mean? Will there be an odd man out in this offense? There naturally is. Could it be DJ Moore? I just find it really hard to believe based on the experience and what you've seen from him over the course of his career. Maybe he wasn't the top target of Caleb Williams in the preseason because you had Roma Dunze, you had Olamide Zaccheaus, and certainly the tight ends getting involved there. But I think DJ's still going to get his. And this offense can have 2,000-yard receivers. They did it in Detroit for multiple years, and with a tight end that got up to that number pretty much as well in Sam LaPorta. I think they're going to find a balance with that with these guys too. Courtney,
we're going to catch up more with you too on Monday, but anything more we need to get out there that we haven't gotten out there so far?
I think about that left tackle matchup with Jonathan Grenard and the way that it's been talked about. And I appreciate Ben Johnson in the candor that he speaks with in not, in giving Braxton Jones a leash here. He is, depending upon how well he plays, his leash could either get shorter or it could get longer. But Minnesota hears that stuff too. You don't think they're going to be putting Jonathan Grenard over the left tackle every single time? And obviously last year in the meeting that Jones did play, he gave up 2 sacks against the Vikings, and Grenard had 4 tackles for loss. I think it could be a long day on that side of the line. So maybe when we talk about 12 personnel, they're living in max protection. I think you have to. I think that you've got to utilize the resources that you do have to mitigate one of your weakest spots up front. And then on the flip side of that, one thing with Minnesota's injury report I thought was interesting today, and it's something we've been tracking all throughout training camp because of Christian Darrisaw's injury. He didn't practice today. Montez Sweat better get pressure on whoever the backup's going to be at that spot because that should be a matchup they can absolutely take advantage of.
Absolutely. We've talked about the importance of Montez Sweat a lot in this preseason and even more today. Courtney, great work. We appreciate you.
Thanks, Courtney.
Thanks, guys. See you Monday. Take care.
We'll see you Monday at Soldier Field. We'll be broadcasting